this beautiful, rainy, sunny, dreary Monday. But I'm here to brighten up your day. So today is the 29th of June, we're so close to July. And today's lesson is all about critical essay writing, as we've been doing. Here's the dog come to join us. Hello, and we're going to look at how to do a conclusion. So today's word of the day, to expand one's vocab as usual, is quell. Quell. It's quite onomatopoeic that, isn't it? So it's a verb and it basically means to put an end to like a sort of rebellion type thing or a disorder. So typically by the use of force. So extra police were called to quell the disturbance. Today's spelling word is independent. Now we're not going to have a spelling bee, although I may still do, I don't know. But because it's the holidays coming up, you know, but we'll have a bit of fun this week anyway. Pun of the day as usual. It's always important to make peace, not war. Alright, first wee task to get our brain cogs a ticking. Can you think of any TV programmes that start with the letter T? So there's one for you for a little example. Thomas the Tank Engine. Quite a lot of kids programmes start with T. How do we think? Alexa, play. Alexa, stop. I know you didn't get much time. You can just pause it if you need longer. Right, so how do you do a conclusion? What is a conclusion? This is the section that most kids say, I don't know what to do. I can't do a conclusion. Don't worry, help is here. So, it's the last paragraph that your teacher is going to see, and it's basically the last chance for you to show the teacher or the marker that you know the text and that you've answered the question. That's the key thing that you do in the conclusion. It's basically pulling all your ideas and your thoughts together to show the person reading it that you have answered the question and that you have a really good knowledge of the text. So the conclusion, like the introduction, is quite short. It's about 80 to 100 words long. You do not have to count them. But the key word is summary. It's a summary of your essay's ideas. Remember, it's not a summary of the text, because that's what you do in the introduction, correct? So you don't need to sum up the text, it's sum up your essay, which is obviously focusing on the essay question. The conclusion should not contain new evidence or quotes or new information, right? So nothing new should be mentioned in the conclusion. To help you remember the conclusion, I've come up with a little mnemonic. So remember, a mnemonic is a phrase, it's like a memory tool that helps you remember the different parts that go into that section. So remember, tarts for your introduction, pair for your main bodies, and now the mnemonic for the conclusion is teaspoon, teapot. Now I do know that they're meant to be one word each before I get the comments, but in this I've separated them for a reason. So teaspoon, teapot stands for task, summary, themes, purpose. Okay, we're going to look at each of them. Firstly, some English teachers say that they don't like this paragraph to start with in conclusion, to conclude, to summarise. Personally, I like it. It shows me that we're finally on the last paragraph, and that's when I can go, hurrah, 1 down, 29 to go. So I don't mind it, so you can start with that. So T, the first T, T, T-E-A and the letter T, T, stands for task, okay? So just like the first sentence of your introduction, this is where you refer back to the text and then you tell me what the task is. So basically, you can if you like, use the first sentence of your introduction. So remember, that's where you say the name of the text by da 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 is an interesting, intriguing short story which blah blah blah. So you can just rewrite that sentence but just add the words in conclusion to it. Obviously you can change it and jazz it up if you prefer. Here's an example. So in conclusion, The Telegram by Ian Crichton Smith is a thought-provoking short story which explores the interesting character of the Thin Woman. Remember what I said? You need to tell me which character you're doing from the introduction, but that's the key words of the question in blue, interesting character. So you need to refer to the specific words of the task which shows the teacher marker that you are answering the question. The next one, S for spoon, is a brief summary. Now this is where kids get stuck and don't know what they're summarising. This is where you sum up your essay's main findings. Now that's why in my previous lesson I talked about having 3 massive paragraphs, 3 chunky paragraphs, basically effectively looking at beginning, middle, end. It's not that rigid, but this is where this comes in handy too, because you can basically have one sentence that looks at that paragraph, one sentence that sums up that paragraph and the next one. So you can have 3 sentences for one for each. So basically, to help you with this is where, if you followed the pair formula that I've mentioned, the R is where you refer to the task. So that is basically what you're writing here. So again, effectively, if you're really short of time, which you will be at this point, you can just rewrite those last sentences of the main body where you refer to the task. You can also think of it, if you're stuck, to think of it in terms like, firstly, the character's interesting because, and then look at what you've said in paragraph 1. Secondly, the character is intriguing. Right, remember to try and jazz up the key word of the task. We don't want to keep hearing the word interesting, interesting, interesting all the time because it gets really boring. So that's what you're doing. You're summing up each paragraph but answering the question. That's the key. So here's an example. The writer effectively describes the appearance of the Thin Woman. So that's obviously what I've done in paragraph 1, and uses bird imagery to enhance the idea of that she's independent. Despite lacking an identity or a name in the village, so this is what I've said in paragraph 2, the Thin Woman's strength is evident because she's remained there, refusing to leave even after their mistreatment. Then, so this is my 3rd paragraph that I've done on my main body, the Thin Woman composes herself in front of the Fat Woman in order to prevent the villagers mocking her in the future. I'm pulling all these ideas together. Therefore, so you could start with that, the Thin Woman is an interesting character. I've referred to the task because despite these strengths and selflessness, the villagers continue to dislike and ostracise her. So just like the rest, present tense, remember, because literature never dies, but we do. Okay, so that's your teaspoon. Then it's T, which is themes. So once again, mention 2 or 3 of the main themes, which are the issues that the text deals with. There's common themes again that I mentioned in the previous video. But you want to mention themes that are relevant. Each text, especially long ones, will have a multitude of themes. But you want to pick the 2 or 3 that are relevant to answering this question. So if you're doing a character, you would want to focus on the themes surrounding that character, or why that character's been created in that way, to show what sort of things about society or about human nature or anything like that. So a wee example in blue, Crichton Smith effectively explores the themes of war, isolation and conflict as the Thin Woman fails to conform to village life. So everything about the Thin Woman links to war, isolation, she's isolated from the rest, and obviously the conflict within the village against her. So that's one sentence about themes. Your last sentence is the P. So this is the word purpose. I like to think about the word purpose, or as it says there, why does it matter? Why does this text matter? Why did Ian Crichton Smith, why did the writer sit down and write it? It's not just for the money. It's not all about the money, money, money. This is where I want you to reflect on the whole text. What did you get out of it? What are we meant to learn from what's happened in it, from the characters, the plot, anything like that, from these key scenes, you know, the message, whatever. So that kind of links to the theme at this point as well. So what does the writer want us to take away, learn from this text? What message are they sending out there? Obviously, if it's a war poem, for example, it would be to show the devastating impact of war, that sort of thing. So this is really where you're evaluating, if you use a term from the SQA, the impact of the text on us. How are we meant to feel or experience? What are we meant to experience? Example, the writer intelligently depicts how war can destroy village life, causing its residents to become spiteful towards others and ostracize anyone they deem as new or different. So obviously the message, or you could add on to that, you know, the writer is clearly wanting to say that we should be accepting of anyone regardless of their background, blah blah. Excuse me. So a couple of other points. Can you memorise the conclusion? Well, not really. Unlike the introduction, which you can basically memorise apart from the task section, this is the opposite. There's not really anything you can memorise because you don't know what the question's going to be until you open the paper up. So you can't really, because everything that you argue in this, apart from the last sentence, maybe apart from the theme bit, but again that links to the task, so you can only really memorise that last sentence, the purpose, you know, the sort of cheesy statement about what we're meant to take away from the text. So you can maybe memorise that, but anything else, not really, no. So lastly, a visual, as I always say to kids, when you think about a critical essay, think about the introduction as the head, the main body as the main body, and in this case, the plumper the better, and the conclusion is the feet. So that's the last bit. So that's just a wee thing that I like to do in my class. And that's it. That's how to do a conclusion. So hopefully that's been of help. Tomorrow we're having a bit of fun because this is the end of term this week. Hurrah! So we're going to have a wee game of countdown. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Boo! So hopefully you can join. If you haven't, please like, subscribe, share, join my Facebook page, Aim Higher, and the Aim Higher YouTube channel. I will love you forever. If you're not on Facebook, there's the links to the Google Classroom where I upload lots of helpful stuff and worksheets and examples of essays and things like that. So if you want to join, that's what to do if you're not on the old Facebook. And if you'd like to show your appreciation, please send me a little donation to that address. I will be forever grateful. Okay, have a great day. Thanks for tuning in.